Hello, everyone. I'm here today with Manfred Karrer of Bisq. Say hi, Manfred.
Yeah, hello. Hi, Joe. Thanks
Yes,
for
how's
having
it
me on
going?
the show.
So, first, what was your story with cryptocurrency? How did you first hear about cryptocurrency, and why did you choose to get involved?
I heard first about Bitcoin in 2011, more or less. Unfortunately, I don't remember where I have read it. It was some blog or so, but it was really high quality description what Bitcoin is about, because I got infected immediately and fell into the rabbit hole. I thought, yeah, wow, that's the biggest invention since the internet, and might change the world even more like the internet, because it's about money and the control of money and what money can be, and that you can program it and permissionless. And yeah, I think it was very I had a lot of luck to get to such a good article, because I heard then later from many other persons that they needed quite a while to really understand what Bitcoin is about. And yeah, I got luckily directly into the center of the idea and was very interested, but I had a full-time job and didn't get really deep into it. And then, yeah, at a certain point, I stopped my job and wanted to make a kind of like a year off doing whatever I was really interested in. Then started with iOS development, but then was the time when Apple kicked out all the Bitcoin applications. So it became clear to me that I don't want to work for such an environment. And it was 2013 around, and there have been quite a lot of ideas around how to build a decentralized exchange. So in Bitcoin Talk Forum, and so there was many discussions. And I felt into this topic and thought it was kind of like a challenge, how you could build a decentralized exchange which is safe and really deal with fiat money, because that was the challenging and the difficult part, to interact with the legacy system of banks and so. And I developed an idea based on other ideas which were around in the space, and wrote a white paper. And basically I searched for developers who implement the idea. Unfortunately, it was not so easy to find developers in the space, because most developers who have been experienced, they had their own project and they were working on their own stuff. And it was still very young. It was hard to find people. So I thought, okay, when I don't find developer, I tried myself how far I can get, and started to implement kind of like a prototype, and got somehow surprised that it was not so difficult to get this running. And yeah, in 3-4 months or so, I had basically a working prototype. Tried again to find developers. So now with a prototype, it's easier to find people who join. And I made my first presentations and traveled a little bit around different places. And over the while, I joined a few developers. It was a small team, and we get further with the project. And
So,
unfortunately, all the time difficult issues, like we had a peer-to-peer network, a distributed hash table, which basically the project was nearly ready, and it was needed just more testing with the peer-to-peer network. And when we really tested it with the real internet, we discovered it was unfortunately still not stable and good enough. And it ended up that I needed to throw this away and build my own peer-to-peer network based on Tor hidden services. And so it was quite a lot of challenges during the development time, and getting was not so fast and easy. Like I didn't expect that it was easy and fast in the beginning. But this 1 year, which I put aside for not working for a company, has turned out to be not enough. And now it's 3.5 years what I'm involved in the project. And
yes. So, how exactly does Bisq work? So, for some people, they might be familiar with an exchange or a centralized company that you buy directly from, or they might be aware of a more decentralized but peer-to-peer trading platform, right? Still a centralized company that just connects peer-to-peer buyers and sellers. So how does Bisq work compared to all that?
yeah. The main difference, it's not any central entity which is buying and selling the Bitcoin and then giving it to the users. We are delivering the software. It's a desktop application what the users install. And with that application, the users can connect to other users and can trade directly with another user. So Bisq is not a entity, it's not a company. We are never holding the Bitcoin, we're never holding the data of the users, and this privacy protection is basically the core element of the project. What's about that? Because the main problem for me was that I thought, yeah, Bitcoin has kind like a little bit of privacy protection, at least when you take care of your transactions, but a Bitcoin system where you have basically zero privacy, where when you're buying your first Bitcoin at a centralized exchange where you need to register, and then they can follow all the traces of your transactions, because all the graph of transactions, they cannot work, because privacy is a very important feature of a currency, and nobody would like, not only normal people, bank companies, they don't want that their competitors know exactly what they're doing with their money and how they're spending and where they're buying their stuff. So that will never work and has no future. And also for fungibility of money, it's very important.
So how does a user buy Bitcoin from another user? How does the fiat currency part of that work? Like, you can't, obviously they don't take the paper bills and put them into the computer and then it goes through the computer. It's obviously something a little bit different. How does that work?
Yeah, so that the fiat transfer is out of system. The application connects the users. So let's make an example. I want to buy Bitcoin from you. I make an offer. I want to buy whatever, half a Bitcoin, and define the price. And when you think it's a nice price, a good price, then you take my offer. I leave aside the security stuff, or the security deposit and multisig. I will explain a little bit later, just from the user perspective how it works. So I have my offer in an offer book, also it's distributed in a network, and you see it in the application. Okay, there's an offer with this amount of Bitcoin and with this price. And if you want to take it, you just click a button and you take the offer. In this process, when you click the take offer, our application are exchanging the required data. So when you want to buy Bitcoin, you have to send me the US dollar or euro, whatever national currency, and that goes over the bank account. So before I make my offer, I have to set up a bank account in my application. But this not connection to any API or whatever. I just define, that's my bank account number, the name, the data which is required that you can send me the fiat money, and that's only stored locally. So this data is not shared with Bisq or with anybody, only in the process of the trade. So when you are taking my offer, you need to know my bank account that you can send me the fiat, the US dollar, for instance. So when we're starting the trade, you get then presented my bank account number and my name, what you need to send me the money. You go to your online banking webpage that's completely out of Bisq, of the system, and you start the fiat transfer to my bank account number. Then you go back to Bisq, to the application, and click a button. I have started the fiat transfer. The peer-to-peer network our applications are communicating again, and I get the message that, okay, the other trader has started the payment. And depending on the payment method, some payment methods are instant, others take 1 or 2 or 3 days. So like SEPA in Europe is depends on the bank, but can be 1 day or even instant also in some banks. In some countries also they're very slow, unfortunately. But let's assume we have a cool payment method which is instant. When I'm online, I get immediately the message, okay, you have sent the fiat. I go to my banking webpage and check if I've already received it. When I see, okay, everything is correct, the amount is correct, and then we have the trade ID we use as the reference text, so we can assign the trade when I trade multiple times with different people. And then I see, okay, you have sent the money. I can confirm I've received the money, go back to the application again, click a button, and with this button click, we are creating a multisig transaction together, or the payout transaction together from the multisig, and you receive the half Bitcoin. And as I said before, there is some security stuff. There's a security deposit, and this goes back to both users. So it's basically one is creating an offer, the other is taking the offer. When the offer is taken, then we're exchanging the fiat details for the bank details for the fiat transfer. When we are trading in altcoins, it's just the altcoin address. So when we would trade Bitcoin to Dash, for instance, then I get your, or when you are buying Bitcoin, you get my Dash address. You are going to your Dash wallet, send the Dash to my address. I get the message again. As you are clicking the button in the application, I get the message, check either on a Block Explorer or in my Dash wallet if I've received the money, if it have enough confirmations. And when I feel safe that I have at least one confirmation, I go back to the application, click the button, I've received the money, and with that you receive the Bitcoin. For security, because there could be, yeah, of course, when you're trading with a random stranger in the internet, you have to be sure that you cannot get scammed. And to facilitate this, we are using basically 3 different aspects for the security. One is the 2 of 3 multi-signature. I assume your listeners are more or less familiar with multisig.
Yes, probably.
Yeah. And the 3 key holders for the multisig are the 2 traders and an arbitrator. I explain a little bit later the role of the arbitrator. But when it's a normal trade, you don't need to arbitrate. At the end of the transaction of the trade, the 2 traders are signing their part of the multisig, and the Bitcoin pair transaction is created. Then there is a security deposit, and as I said, this arbitration system, which is only required when there are some problems, when there's a dispute. I start maybe with the security deposit. Because of the fact that the banks have not discovered that modern ID enable people to build systems where computers can talk to each other, APIs, for instance. We are required that the humans are doing this work. So this fact that you have to go to your bank account and make the payment, and that I have to check on my bank account to see if I've received the payment, has to be done by us as a human, because most banks don't offer the APIs that we could automate this. There are a few like OKPay and Perfect Money, a few payment processors, or a few modern banks who have APIs and would offer that we integrate basically the fiat transfer in the application. But that's basically not feasible, because it would be a lot of effort for the few methods where it's possible. And
So how seamless and fast is the experience compared to, say, a centralized exchange?
Yeah, we cannot compete with this kind of like not really high frequency trading, but with this fast trading that you just click a button and entry in a database is changed, and you get your Bitcoin in your centralized exchange as it's just an IOU, because it's not your Bitcoin as long as you have not transferred it out, or your dollar. But as a minimum, what you have to wait is the confirmation on the Bitcoin blockchain. So when we are starting the trade, the multisig deposit is created, and we need to wait at least for 1 confirmation. Otherwise, there would be a double spend risk. Of course, it can be that the confirmation happens in 5 seconds. Usually it's 10 minutes. So this 10 minutes in average is the minimum time what a trade takes. When it's an instant bank transfer, or when it's an altcoin, which is fast, it's also quite, it can be more or less instant. You go to your bank account, send it quickly, I check it quickly, and in a few minutes later, we can make the payout transaction. And with that, I see already I have the money is on the way. But we cannot compete with this. But you have to compare it with when you are starting at the centralized exchange. First, you need to register. That can take weeks in some exchanges, and you have to send all kind of governmental IDs and whatever, and you have to trust them that they don't get hacked, and you don't become victim of identity theft, which is a huge problem. Of course, you don't have any privacy, because they have the data. They know exactly what you are trading, what you're doing with your Bitcoin. And when you are sending in money, as a fiat or Bitcoin, with Bitcoin, usually they wait for 6 confirmations, so around 1 hour. And when you when you send the fiat, the US dollar to an exchange, depends again on your payment method, what you're using. But usually it's also 1 day or whatever until the money has arrived. So when you start, you cannot trade fast. Usually it takes a week or so for the first-time user. In Bisq, you don't need to register. You download the software and you can start immediately, basically. But then, of course, when you are trading on a centralized exchange, you can buy, you can speculate, and that goes very fast. But it's not your money there. It's just the IOU of the exchange. And as we have seen with Mt. Gox, the US dollar in Mt. Gox was very different value like the real US dollar, because people knew already that probably never get out the US dollar. It was just a promise. And yeah, and when the exchange get hacked or has other problems, then yeah, your money is basically lost. Or
So
at least.
how difficult would it be for example, a government to shut down trading on this platform in their country?
Because Bisq is running over Tor and Tor as a service, you cannot block IP. Basically, you don't know where the traders are. When it's a when it's a fiat transaction, you only can trade with people who have the same payment system. So when you don't have a dollar account in Europe or the same payment method, you cannot trade with people in the US. Or in Europe, we have the SEPA system. So when you have a SEPA account, you cannot trade with somebody in Russia who has a completely different payment method. So it's a little bit localized by their fiat transfer payment methods. But on the crypto side, also when you're trading altcoins, you're completely global. You have a completely global scope. And actually, yeah, when you're trading altcoin, you have no idea where the other peer is. You only see the onion address. That's the only identity. So for governments who try to apply control or censorship, it will be difficult because, yeah, the system is built in a decentralized, with a decentralized architecture. So there's not a company, there's not a server behind which can get shut down. It's basically, yeah, we try to be as decentralized as Bitcoin itself or as other cryptocurrencies which have already achieved a high levels decentralization. And of course, it's difficult to get there because it doesn't start decentralized, but yeah, we try to get as far as possible, and it's a process, and we're still a few elements which are not perfectly decentralized, but yeah, it's a process to get there.
Well, it's definitely an ambitious goal to try to take one of the big weaknesses of cryptocurrency, which is how you can trade it and how you can acquire it, and make that not vulnerable, right? Make that so anyone can do it and doesn't need to rely on an exchange or something that just goes offline or has poor customer support or something. Yeah. So that's definitely an interesting goal. So what do you think about the current state of Bitcoin or the Bitcoin universe? It's been a crazy last couple of years with a lot of disagreements in the space.
Yeah, I see it basically as an attack on Bitcoin, as all this block size debate. I don't think it's about the block size. I think it's about control over Bitcoin. And the strategy to divide and conquer is a very old strategy. That's a very simple one, and it's applied in many, many areas to divide a community and then destroy a lot of network effect and destroy their work and time of people. For myself, I probably lost minimum half a year of really productive work of time related to the block size debate to investigate, or like every few months there are some threads of a new fork and whatever, and then you have to act and try to find out if the project is vulnerable when this happens, and all the chaos and so on, and to deal with this. And that's actually the reason why we have now support for multiple base currencies, because that was a few months ago when the transaction fee in Bitcoin, the mining fee, became really high. And that was, for me, I'm pretty sure that was spam transactions from probably Bitcoin miners like Bitmain. I mean, there are quite a lot of economic incentives and political incentives for them to drive up the prices. And with the New York agreement, suddenly all the network, the blockchain congestion stopped basically, and the requirement to pay $2 or $3 on fee fell back to pay whatever 5 cents in fee. So there was a lot of stuff, and for me, I lost a lot of time. I mean, this time we had a fixed mining fee, and that worked fine over the last 1.5 years. But in this time between March and May or so, when they spammed the blockchain and the fees became higher and higher, and with a normal transaction with a lower fee, you just didn't get any confirmation. we had a lot of issues. So I have a lot of work with customer, from the customer care side. People started a trade, but the deposit transaction never got confirmed. And then there was also a lot of uncertainty about some chain splits and whatever, and how safe Bitcoin will be in this time. And because Bitcoin is our security layer with the multisig and everything and the confirmation, when we would have a chain split with no replay protection or minor attacks that you cannot trust, that you actually don't know how many confirmations you need to be safe, that your money cannot be rolled back by a reorg, by a huge reorg when the miners are attacking one chain or whatever. That would basically have rendered Bisq unusable, because we cannot trade when we don't have the security that the Bitcoin transaction is settled and cannot be reversed in a few hours or in a few days. And that created and the other thing where the mining fee became higher and higher, which would have destroyed basically the business model of Bisq, that we are doing the transaction on-chain. Also the trade is an on-chain transaction, but when the mining fee would be whatever, 50 euro per transaction, it's way too expensive. We could not compete with other exchanges which have just a database entry and have basically no cost for making a trade. And all this together created the pressure that we think, okay, what's the alternative? And then, we thought, what are other implementation of our Bitcoin? As we are using Bitcoin J on the technical side for the Bitcoin part, and there are a few other forks of Bitcoin J, like Litecoin, Doge, and Dash, and I think a few other one, Namecoin, but in Namecoin they don't have implemented pay-to-script hash. So that was, and we are using a multisig, the pay-to-script hash for the multisig. But we looked into the technically feasible alternatives, what we could add, or where we could basically make it flexible, that we use another base currency instead of Bitcoin. And when Bitcoin would get attacked, then we could use Litecoin or Doge or Dash as the base currency. People can use this and can trade based on that. It would have, of course, the big advantage that those base currency have then a decentralized fiat exchange. So in Bisq you can use now Dash for trading against dollar or euro or whatever, or any other altcoin. And it turned out that the effort was high, but it was kind of like doable. It cost us maybe 2 months of work all in all. And the Dash main developers, they supported us. They implemented basically the library, because it was not fully, also with Litecoin and Doge, it was quite easy. There was not a lot of effort to use the existing libraries, but for Dash, it required more effort. So that took a little bit longer, but the Dash developers basically delivered this, and we only did the integration. And now you can use Bisq with 3 other, as alternatively to Bitcoin, Litecoin, Doge, and Dash as the base currency. And at the end, it was a great feature. Now we are kind of like and that's all why we renamed us to a exchange network. It becomes much more decentralized also on the base currency side. Of course, we are limited to those technology who have a version of Bitcoin J, also which are very similar, or which are basically forks from Bitcoin. Some other currencies like altcoins like Ethereum or Monero or others, which have a very different version or have no implementation for Bitcoin J, would be a huge effort. And maybe someday in future we'll add them as well, but then it takes maybe a year of effort to implement all the infrastructure to support this, and that's not feasible at the moment, at least. But at the end, it was a result of this war on the blockchain, on the block size, and all these attacks. Because luckily we have now the state that SegWit got activated, and it's not so critical anymore, the problems. Also, the transaction spam stopped. They started again a few days ago, but it seems to be more under control. And with SegWit, the miners will have it harder to do this again. So it develops very good, I think, in Bitcoin. I'm very bullish now with Bitcoin. But for me, the result was I spent quite a lot of time on stuff which was not high priority, because Instead of this time, we could have decentralized other important aspects like the arbitration system. Instead of this, yeah, we added support for other altcoins as a base currency, which is of course great, but yeah, they're not traded too much. It was not really a high demand for this and a high priority from that side as well. And it was a huge cost for us. And I think that's yeah, from the strategy of those who don't like to see that the crypto space or Bitcoin become a huge success and might be really a competition to national currencies. It was a kind of like a successful attack, or yeah, that they have destroyed basically a few months of my productive work, and that they forced me to do stuff which was not really in my roadmap, in my priority list. And I think that happens for many other projects the same. For core developers, they have to deal with stuff and are prevented to do the really important stuff. And yeah, that's my view on all this yeah, civil war what we have, unfortunately, since 2 years.
Yes, well, hopefully just that unfortunate circumstance has led to a security measure, right? Being able to use different chains, that now that won't be a vulnerability anymore. Sort of
Yeah,
like
exactly.
a decentralized ecosystem a little bit.
Yeah.
So just like Mt. Gox going down, decentralize the exchange ecosystem. So what do you think about, do you think there's ever going to be a time when distributed peer-to-peer cryptocurrency trading is going to become almost as popular or more popular than centralized exchanges?
I think it depends on external factors mainly. As long as there are no huge problems with security and with scams, like we have seen in the past all the time, Mt. Gox the most famous. In this time, or when the Bitfinex hack were and so on, then of course decentralized exchanges are a big topic again, and we get much more traffic and so on. But after a few weeks, people forget again and go back. So yeah, the memory in that area is short-living usually. And the other big, I mean, yeah, the other big issue is the privacy protection and the governmental oversight. And I'm not against regulation, because a centralized exchange, there are very good reasons why they are regulated, because you need to trust them. And when there's a lot of money, I mean, you have scammers, you have criminals who are maybe not the founders or the people who are running the exchange, but maybe some employee who have then hacked something and stolen some money. And for this reason, because the security model is based on trust, yeah, there's the regulation and the governmental oversight, and that makes it harder for scammers and for criminals to abuse the weaknesses in the security model. Beside this security issues, there's also insider or front-running, insider trading, basically, in the order matching. In a centralized exchange, when you put up an order and the order is pretty good, as the operator, you could take this offer and give the other trader not the best offer, that you are basically taking away the best offer for yourself. And you can, yeah, with stop loss and so on, there's a lot of possibilities how you can cheat your own customers. And of course, that happens and happened in the normal stock market. And that's the reason why they are heavily regulated, because without this regulation, there would be simply too much fraud, that these services would not really work well for the society. And yeah, government said, yeah, we want to have stock markets and yeah, such exchanges and those tools, but we want to have it more or less safe and reliable. We don't want that this is a huge scam paradise. So yeah, in the past, there were no really better solutions, like yeah, to regulate it, to control everything. But now with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, we have luckily a lot of new technical possibilities to build systems which are safe by the structure, like with multisig at the security deposit in Bisq. And with those tools, yeah, you don't need this oversight anymore, because there is no counterparty risk. Bisq never holds the Bitcoin, so cannot steal the Bitcoin. And the same with the data. And I think it's in the society is hugely underestimated the importance of your private data. When somebody can steal your identity, your governmental issued passport or whatever, yeah, it can create a lot of damage, and maybe yeah, impersonate you, make a lot of scams, and then you cannot open a bank account anymore because the bank has flagged this identity because it was maybe once stolen from an exchange. And I think that's a huge liability of all the centralized services which are doing ID verification, because nobody can secure this when you have a server where this is stored. At some point when it's relevant for hackers, it can be stolen. Even the Pentagon get hacked. And because online identity becomes more and more important in our society, I think that's even more important, like money. When I can choose, when I know that somebody has hacked an exchange, I'm much more worried about my identity documents which got stolen, like the money, because I mean the money is limited. When there's $1,000, okay, that's $1,000 gone. But when they have stolen my documents, they can create much more damage, like this $1,000 in my whole future. And I think this strategy from governments, that they are forcing all the companies to do KYC and identity verification and store this data forever or a very long time, it's a very dangerous and stupid strategy, because they are putting a lot of risk and liability on all these companies. And even the biggest company like Sony, all they get hacked. It's not a question of money or professionalism. It's just a question if the data become valuable enough for an attacker, that it's relevant. And I think the only solution is that you are not holding the data, that you are building a security system which can work without this identity verification and solve the problem on that way. And
centralizing the whole storage of data to make it more secure.
Yeah.
That's very nice. Well, thanks very much for all that you do to decentralize the exchange of currency, right? And thanks very much for talking to me today. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you for having me on your show. It was nice.
All right, no problem.
Bye-bye.